Gentleman from Prince William, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I normally rise to speak on military and veterans issues, but as I pour over the budget that you will all consider tomorrow on the floor of this old and venerable House, I am moved to talk about an important element that I think does in fact serve military and veteran members of our Commonwealth as well as all citizens of the Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, that's the issue of economic development and our treatment of that important element of the Virginia state budget that we will consider tomorrow. So with that, let me discuss some of the high points of the economic development portions of our budget. And let me thank Chairman Jones, Vice Chairman Landis, and my fellow members of the Appropriations Committee for their work over many weeks and, in fact, months to make this document happen that will be in front of you tomorrow. One of the things that we need to do is continue on the long-standing Virginia necessity for a balanced, comprehensive, conservative, and careful budget. And that is precisely what this budget does, Mr. Speaker. It makes smart investments in the core functions of government, and that's one of the most important things that we can do here. And one of the most important core functions, of course, is economic development. So let me talk just very quickly about Virginia's economy as a reminder to set the context of this. Our economy here in Virginia is improving slightly, but it still lags behind the national recovery. That's a reality. It's caused by sequestration and changes in federal spending. Our economy has registered here in Virginia 0% in 2014, and Virginia, unfortunately, has fallen to a 12th place ranking in the CNBC business rankings of all the states. We've lost about 150,000 jobs and approximately $9 billion in economic activity. None of that is insignificant. Strengthening our economy and creating good-paying jobs is a top priority of the House of Delegates and, of course, of the Appropriations Committee. We are moving legislation that fosters job creation with most definitely a pro-business climate. All of you have participated in that. It encourages and incentivizes economic growth, and it reforms our regulatory process. Let me say that again. It reforms our regulatory process to protect that most precious commodity, small business. And so we have proposed significant investments in our economic development efforts here in Virginia. Since 2010, in the economic development category of state spending, we have spent $679 million on those efforts to invigorate our economy. Our new budget does not give a blank check in what we're trying to do, Mr. Speaker, and it's targeted these investments into economic development. It includes $110 million in new money for economic development, aimed at specific measures to yield higher results for our taxpayers. It expands the research and development tax credit, so vitally important to the economy of our Commonwealth, to establish new credit aimed at larger scale research ventures. It includes funding to develop a pilot project within the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, specifically to support the development of sites which have been included in the Virginia Business Ready Sites program. And it invests in the Virginia Tourism Authority to promote our growing film industry. But all this is done with oversight. Let me talk about that for just a second, the important element of oversight in all this. While it is important, Mr. Speaker, that we invest in our economic development efforts, it's even more important that we exercise oversight on our activity in this area. Earlier this session, we learned about a failed economic development activity, a failed deal in Appomattox County that, to be blunt, has left the taxpayers on the hook, and we have to address that. Our efforts this year will renew our commitment to making sure that all taxpayer dollars are spent in a responsible way. And that's why we included language in the budget to establish an ongoing oversight group with JLARC to ensure that we do just that. This group will review economic development expenditures, including both grants and tax incentives, to help us evaluate how to move forward with bringing new jobs into our Commonwealth. One mechanism to ensure our dollars go further is what you've heard about before, and that is Go Virginia, an innovative plan to foster regional cooperation and economic development across our state, introduced by Majority Leader Cox, that will help potential research projects with a bottom-up approach, so vitally important. We also invest in the Virginia Research, Development, and Commercialization Fund, which is the framework for local regional boards, and the GO Grant program to provide startup funding for innovative and transformational projects to boost growth in Virginia's private sector. And so in closing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleagues on the House Appropriations Committee for their sustained and focused work on this effort. The budget does most definitely, indisputably supports our priority of economic development in the Commonwealth by creating good-paying jobs, and this is important, in the private sector. That is the measure of the vitality of our economy. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is my hope that the ladies and gentlemen of this House will support this budget when it comes before them tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.